Kingdom Come Deliverance II is a hard-ass game, no matter how you choose to approach it. It's a hard game to play, to get a footing in, and to stick with in its early hours. It's hard too, in how it refuses to readily explain its myriad of interlocking mechanics and systems, or to help in any of the many ways that we've perhaps regrettably become accustomed to as modern RPG players. It takes a big time commitment to get anywhere in Warhorse's epic sequel, and we guess fans of the first game wouldn't have it any other way.
Of course, sir.
Would we personally still be playing it if it wasn't for our review? We're not sure. But that doesn't mean it isn't a fantastic RPG. It absolutely is, as is proven by the score at the end of this video. It's just that, as much as we love it, it's almost too much of a commitment to remain a viable option for our spare gaming time. And we reckon that'll be a factor for many of those who dip their toes into this massive time sink of a game.
You're right there, laddie.
If you are gonna get stuck into Henry of Skallitz's latest adventure, prepare to be challenged in ways that very few contemporary RPGs manage to challenge their players. That's the long and short of it, really. Prepare to dig deep, out of necessity, and to commit lots and lots of time to shaping your version of Henry into the sort of protagonist who can survive a day in 15th century Bavaria. If you are up for it, Warhorse has served up a medieval sandbox that sets new mechanical standards for the RPG genre, most especially in just how doggedly it sticks to its own rules to create a world of real consequence.
They got what they deserved, the fuckers!
Honestly, we really do feel it's imperative that you understand just how time-consuming and punitive this game is first though, at the risk of harping on. It took us roughly double-digit hours just to figure out how to own a horse. Getting to a proficient level of fighting requires actual training and serious commitment to what can be a very punishing combat system. There are skill checks on this stuff along the way too. Tough duels you'll need to win to progress certain missions. Horse races against ace jockeys who give no quarter. Indeed, every mission, be it main or side, that you undertake in Kingdom Come Deliverance II has the potential to sweep you up and away for far longer than expected. Because along the way, you'll fail. You'll lose key NPCs to death, some even to accidents. You'll make the wrong conversational choices and blow things disastrously, and then move on in a world slightly altered, on a path that's shifted subtly. Oh, and you'll get arrested. Lots and lots of times.
About time. Just you wait till Lord von Berghoff hears how you treat a noble. You, come with me to the courtyard.
You'll do crimes, and pay the price for underestimating RPG mechanics that are watching you at all times. You better believe it.
Do I look like a dishonest man?
You'll get robbed, lost, sidetracked by a mission to find a legendary sword, about as fairy tale as this one gets. Or maybe, like us, you'll spend 3 solid in-game days crouch walking around inside a huge castle in your underpants, just so that you can level up your stealth skills whilst learning to lockpick, which is incredibly difficult. It's one of those ones, this. A proper rarity, a game to get truly lost in, an RPG to replay ad nauseum thanks to staggeringly deep mechanics that somehow hold together whilst we act like cretins, and a representation of medieval Europe that's a joy to spend time in, given how real it all feels, how incredibly mundane and unfantastical it is.
Stay down!
I can't bear to look.
Fucking idiot!
Indeed, one of the biggest selling points of the first game was the lack of dragons and dwarves, elves and electric magic bolts. In this game, well, there's horse shit everywhere. People tell you to fuck off for looking at them weird, and if you're dirty, you'll need to wash off and mind. You're in for a day of walking around and getting insulted by people who don't want to smell your stink. Have you been rolling in shit again, Henry? What's wrong with you? Take this seriously and have a bath, for fuck's sake.
Have you two got any groschen?
What do you take me for, wench?
For someone who stinks like a badger.
Narratively, Kingdom Come Deliverance II sees Henry go up against the Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund in the aftermath of a civil war from the first game, which we won't be spoiling any more of the fun of the story here. And although Henry is much more skilled now than he was in part 1, there's still a ton for him to learn. The combat has its own weighty and laborious feel and flow. Many will bounce off it, we're sure. And digging in to learn combos and train and movesets sees you begin to branch out, to develop new skills that sometimes even bleed into other useful aspects of your overall character. It's an incredibly malleable system, and one that's earned a place in our hearts for allowing us to create a vile and smelly Henry who loves nothing more than to dig up graves at night whilst hammering bags of dried poppies. Practice makes perfect really is at the heart of everything in Kingdom Come Deliverance II, in fact. Whether it's using your bow, a longsword, axe, shield, pike, you name it, there's a learning curve. Some combos to nail the timings on, and strategy to be applied when facing opponents who come at you with everything they've got. At first, it feels almost alien, especially if you've not struggled through all of this in the first game. But as you add moves, shield blocks, ripostes, knee strikes, and so forth, you begin to find the rhythm in it. Movement and input feels sluggish for a reason starting out, and with practice, there are some very enjoyable and challenging duels to face throughout the game's story.
You got him!
The same goes for cooking food, for conversing with vendors, for using alchemy to create health potions and poisons, blacksmithing, drying food, and more besides. Cooking requires you to read a book, to go get ingredients. You need to use a timer to boil things, for crying out loud. Making a sword requires you to actually get a suitable piece of metal, heat it in a furnace, move it to the anvil, and hammer it out methodically in a little game of banging to the beat or whistle that you can actually get really good at. Heck, you even have to dip the sword in some water at the end. It's quite in-depth, and everything taking place in first person, slowly and methodically. It's incredibly engrossing, it really is.
Very nice work.
Horse riding, hunting, looking after your dog, drinking, barehanded boxing, sneaking around, stabbing folk, nicking things, lying like a bastard, murderizing innocent people. All of these things have corresponding sections in your character menus, which look every bit as swish as the glorious in-game map. And you can get better at all of them in various ways. Drink a ton of beer, and you'll start to reap the benefits of drinking a ton of beer, for example. It just helps you get a more healing night's sleep, amongst other things. Or ride around the map, jumping fences and doing fancy 3-point turns on your horse, and you'll soon begin to see the benefits as a jockey of some prowess. All of this melds with clever overworld systems that sees crimes remembered long term. Locals won't forget your face in a hurry, and severe punishments meted out for any and all noted infractions of the rules of 15th century society. The world map isn't huge by any means, but it's deep. It's got hidden secrets that don't shine or sparkle or try to attract you to them. It rewards players who want to inhabit it fully, who are willing to take risks and go off the beaten track to explore, and most probably die. There are some doozies of treasure spots to stumble upon too, and they're all the more rewarding thanks to loot, armor, swords, and even early versions of guns that you'll want to either brandish or sell. The more you sell, the better prices you'll make too, of course. And it all helps when the best gear can often be of vital importance given the ferocious difficulty of scraps at times.
No, I'm done with this.
Conversations with NPCs are well acted and fully voiced across the board, and side missions here also follow The Witcher 3's lead in how left field they can often seem, in how they intertwine at points, and in how you can discover them by chance, leading to crossovers between side activities and main missions that feel organic. None of this is entirely original. The rules and laws have all been done before somewhere or other. But here, they feel enforced with a clarity, strictness, and overall cleverness that make for an incredibly engrossing time. We should also note that this game is unexpectedly very, very funny in its dialogue. There's an ignorance to some of this medieval patter that just really tickles our funny bones, and the writers and actors should be commended for how well they've nailed the vibe.
You behave like a spoilt brat.
How dare you speak?
Bavaria circa 1403, as it turns out, is a truly atmospheric and chaotic medieval playground that, once you start to click with it, once you get a footing and can hold your own a little, is almost impossible to step back from. You just have to get to that point of comfort first. It took us a good 20 hours to start feeling competent enough in combat, to take on multiple opponents, to race against folk on our horse for bets, or to raid a large building for every bit of valuable gear before selling it all to a fence. Another 10 hours in, and we were stealing and selling fancy horses, getting embroiled in shady networks, and spending even more time crouch walking around and choking people out, because our Henry is actually a descendant of Sam Fisher on his mother's side. The strict adherence to the laws and rules of the world, the unbending way in which they are enforced, unless you are a smooth talker, whilst giving it all so much immediacy and tension from moment to moment, can also prove to be the game's biggest negative at times too though. It's very hard to make progress in the narrative in places, especially when you hit upon some big story sequence that sees you need to fight a bunch of enemies topped by a boss of sorts. We had to step back at times, go away and train, get better and come back. That's the whole ethos. We get it, but in practice, you need to find the real world time to do it. This game is hardcore, to a fault. In fact, we were surprised to even find that it had fast travel. Those who enjoyed Kingdom Come Deliverance, who stuck with it through significant early teething problems, already know all of this. It's more of the punitive same, now even more realized. The combat is tough as nails, but an improvement on its predecessor. It looks and performs better, the story builds into something more epic overall, and the world feels more alive. In its people and their routines, you can follow them to breakfast and work if you like, and in its animals, lush forests and open fields. Yeah, you're pretty much guaranteed to be in heaven if you enjoyed part 1, really. Even with regards to the various controversies that surrounded the first game's inexcusable gamer-gatey politics and outlook, there's been noticeable improvements this time out. There's a more varied cast, it's definitely more inclusive, which shouldn't be a point of merit, but here we are. And it feels as though some folk have learned a few important lessons in the past couple of years. We'd be lying if we said that there's not still room for improvement, but progress is progress.
I yield! Mercy!
In the end, if you've got the time and inclination to rise to a stiff challenge, what Warhorse has produced here is an almost overwhelmingly deep, clever, and engrossing thing. It's absolutely one of the best RPGs we've played in terms of how it embeds you in its world. It makes you work for everything, and it's all the better for it. If we had the spare gaming hours, we'd likely spend another 100 of them in 15th century Bohemia. Finally, and with regards to performance on Xbox Series X, we settled on playing the game's performance mode. Quality, which we didn't spend much time with, just feels lacking in combat compared to the smoothness of 60 FPS, and there's no huge aesthetic difference in action. We've also been fairly amazed, to be quite honest, at how few bugs we've encountered. For such a huge and complex thing, we can't think of any standout examples of having been held back by a critical bug, missing NPC, or any of the usual RPG things, which is nice.
Sorry about the cold reception. You must be cautious.
Kingdom Come Deliverance II is an epic RPG in every sense. This is a big, brutal world that works according to deep rules and mechanics that it's never shy about enforcing. Combat is tough. There's a heft and realism to everything, and you'll need to work hard for the things you achieve. But if you're up to the challenge, if you can spare a whole load of time, this almost obtusely tough RPG will reward your persistence in spades. With top-notch writing and voice acting, one of the most convincingly real worlds we've ever roleplayed in, and an absolutely filthy line in humor, violence, and foul language, this is every bit the sequel fans of Henry's first outing will have been hoping for. Well then, that about does it for PJ O'Reilly's review, awarding Kingdom Come Deliverance II with an excellent score of 9 out of 10 from Pure Xbox. If you'd like to mull over the written review, you can check out the link in the description. Personally, I've poured hours upon hours into this game, and you'd certainly find me agreeing with a 9 out of 10, if not more. Do let me know what you make of this hefty RPG in the comments below, because it's time for me to get back to the medieval jail. My Henry got caught in a poppy field doing who knows what with who knows who. As always, thanks for watching, and all that's left to say is bye-bye for now. Cheerio!